I'm Dawn Gibson with Confident Parenting Connection, and today with Conversations That Connect, I have Natalie Garay, and I'm super excited that she's here to chat with me a little bit about shifting generational patterns for our own children. You know, all of us are passing down patterns to our children, whether or not we want to admit it and whether or not we are consciously aware of it. And so today we're just going to talk a little bit about how we are shifting that for our own children and what you can do as well. But first, I would like you to introduce yourself, Natalie.
Thank you for having me. I love sitting down and chatting with you.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, I'm a Pilates instructor by trade, and I have an online business where I specialize in helping moms recover from post-baby, basically, cesarean section surgery specifically, and pelvic floor strengthening, and just helping them get back to their pre-baby strength, or better than their pre-baby strength, really. That's kind of how it worked for me. I was stronger after my cesarean sections, after rehabbing. And then I'm just so passionate about that because I feel like women are not given any instruction or direction on where to go, on what to do after baby, and then they continue on caring for their baby and their family and their life and not themselves. And then we get to this point where we're just completely depleted and exhausted and living in pain. And I say no to that. And I say, so I'm just trying to, help women learn how to connect.
Great.
And there's so much going on with our pelvis on an energetic level that I would love to share and spread that message too.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really excited that you're joining me today. You know, you have 3 girls of your own, and I have 2 girls and a boy, a son. And for conscious women like ourselves, we tend to think a lot about our own lives, our own personal development, the way we see the world, how we're impacting our children, how we're raising our children. Are we doing the right things? Are we not doing the right things? And in doing so, I know for myself, I have recognized some patterns just from the get-go with my youngest daughter that I was passing down, or my oldest daughter rather, that I was passing down to her back before I really had any awareness or knowledge around this generational or intergenerational passing down of things from, centuries ago, essentially, especially from woman to woman. I know we also can pass down things to our sons, but I feel like we have such a major impact on our daughters as well, and they look to us to learn what kind of woman and what kind of mother to be and how to be a woman. Mm-hmm. And I was just having a conversation actually with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about this idea that we are not taught how to be women generally. At least I think past generations didn't teach daughters how to be women. I mean, I feel like I am teaching that to my daughter right now because we have very open conversations. Yeah. But that you are a girl, and then you get married, and then you have a baby, and then you're a woman. And I feel like that also has an impact on our girls as well. So I know I'm kind of all over the place with this, but I want to know, what are your thoughts about how you're parenting your daughters, and what are you doing differently, and what have you noticed in your life that you may or may not be passing on, or that you want to stop? What cycles are you wanting to stop with you?
Yeah, it's awesome. With the more aware we are, the more responsibility we feel we have, right? And it's a little bit stressful. I'm like,
it is. Yes.
That's a lot.
Exactly.
It is a lot. Yeah, like you said, I have 3 daughters. I have 12-year-old twin daughters and a 10-year-old. And this year, my 12-year-old daughter started junior high school, and it was such I was very aware of this transition of little girl to young lady. And, they take on this whole new role of responsibility, not just at home, but at school. And these teachers, what I was so thankful for were these teachers who knew how to deal with that. And we weren't taught how to deal with that. And they've experienced it year after year after year because they get these cycles of kids coming through, right? So they're very good at preparing us. They were saying, especially now with social media, check your children's social media because this, that, and the other can happen. And you're like, what? And we're making them more responsible for their homework, and we're making them more responsible by giving them schedules and making them switch classes and then having their locker and doing their laundry and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But for my girls, what I found that I'm really hoping to instill in my girls is a sense of confidence, a feeling of confidence as women, as young ladies, but also kindness, just being aware and kind and gentle and loving and supportive of everybody. And I found that they're really, listening and doing it, which is awesome.
I want to know how you're doing that. Like what kind of things do you do? And I can share as well, but what kind of things do you do to instill the confidence in your girls and to instill this idea that it's important or that it's of family value or value of yours to be kind to other people? What can you pinpoint what you've specifically done?
I feel like I feel like this idea of love, this unconditional love, is really of knowing that, if seeing everybody with a loving eye kind of gives you a sense of confidence. You're not seeing people as lower or less than, higher or less than, but you love them no matter what. And I feel like that is a great way to feel confident, if that makes any sense. And then just having conversations with them, because they'll come home and say, so-and-so said this to me, so-and-so did that to this person, and we'll talk about it. How did that make you feel? And did you say anything, and did you tell them that wasn't okay, that's not nice, and we shouldn't talk to each other that way? And I have a story about one of my daughters who saw a young man, I think he was in 7th grade, who usually spends his time alone at lunchtime. And she just had this heartache for him. Oh, it's going to make me tear up.
It's going to give me tear up. It's okay.
So she came home one day and she said, Mom, there's this guy, and I see him alone all the time, and I really want to I want him to have friends. Can we have him over? And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're getting to the age of the boy-girl thing is a little bit different now. That relationship is a little bit different. So I'm like, okay, what other ideas do you have that we can do as opposed to, maybe having him over to the house? What can we do? She says, well, I want to get a group of kids and have a day, go to the park and play. She gets all these kids together. We all go to the park on Saturday. We volunteer to pick him up. It turns out this young guy was either, I don't know if he didn't mention it to the father or what happened, but we got to the house. He couldn't make it. He had chores that day. And so she was so heartbroken. So it didn't end up happening, but we had 14 kids at the park together to play with.
They showed up for him too.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and it's really heartwarming when you see your girls, your kids want to do things like that for people, and they get recognized for that. They have friends tell them all the time, you guys are so sweet and you're so kind, and it's just, makes you proud mama.
It does, and I feel like, taking it to a different step, or one step further, is it comes from us too, right? And it's like we instill the confidence in them and we show them how to be kind. And I know that before I was a confident woman, before I did my own personal healing work, whether that was through my own psychotherapy, through also coaching, I had a parenting coach at one time, and also through energetic work and spiritual development, and then training I went through, Hakomi body-centered psychotherapy, which is all about getting in touch with the body, the mind, body, spirit connection. And I feel like when we exude confidence and when we are confident in our own skin and feel good about who we are, that we can also teach our daughters to do the same. And I know for my oldest daughter, when she took on my anxiety, which I feel is generational,
yeah,
that it was a big eye opener, because you're looking right in the mirror. I mean, they mirror back to us our stuff, whether we want to see it or not. But then, like you're saying, they also mirror back the stuff that we're pretty proud of, which is, look at how kind your daughters are. And that's a direct reflection of you, that they're mirroring that back to you. And and you are like, you are such a kind person. And so it doesn't surprise me that your daughters are that way as well. And I feel like it's so important to just be aware of what we're passing down, and also acknowledging ourselves, because I think moms get into this mode of, and I heard this a lot when I was doing my new free product, the PDF I recently did about the 10 ways you're screwing, or 10 ways quit screwing up your kids. Yeah. And it was tongue-in-cheek title because it was based on moms thinking that they're constantly damaging their kids. And I see it over and over again, and I hear it over and over again. I was there at one point, and I think it's so important for us to also acknowledge, like, you know, like my oldest can now get on stage in front of 100 people and sing songs and dance. And she would not have been able to do that before until we worked on her confidence and lessening her anxiety. And, you know, and like you were saying, and she wrote me a song this morning, like this really kind, sweet song. And I cried this morning, but she does really sweet things for her friends and draws them pictures and creates designs for them. And I really do feel like these things are direct reflections of how we talk to our children, what we say to them, how we behave in our own lives. Are we kind to people? Do we let them express their feelings? Just the fact that your girls know they can come home to you and say, gosh, Mom, you know, this is what I'm seeing happening at school. And you ask them, how did that make you feel? You know, you're actually listening to their feelings, and that in and of itself is going to help children feel more confident as well, and also feel more connected to who they are as people. And so I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it is so important because, you know, I remember being in 7th and 8th grade and high school and not feeling that. It was such an awkward, weird stage. And I remember when the girls were just about to go into 7th grade, and it was like, okay, girls, get ready, because, you know, there's kids coming from other schools that are going to come to your school. You know, you didn't grow up with these guys. It's going to be different. And when you get into high school, you know, it could be a total shitstorm. So here's what I have to say about that, because it was awkward for me, and I was totally not confident. You know, I went through the most awkward, chubby, non-confident stage at that time. And so I just to be able to kind of give them a heads up and then be able to share what I experienced and talk to them about it is, I think, is all, you know, is what all you can do, really. I mean, and just being aware, just being aware of it. And sometimes we're not aware of the things we say, like, you know, if we're having an off day and our jeans don't fit and you're like, oh my God, I feel so fat. And you don't really realize that they catch on to those things too. And I've heard them say, oh my gosh, none of my clothes fit me. And I'm like, ugh.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's the body confidence gets passed on too, you know, and those are things that a lot of people are not aware of. And I love that you were able to speak from your experience, because it sounds like you were wanting to break the pattern of your experience of middle school as well. And just to be honest about, this is my experience. And then also allowing them to have their own, right? Because we're all, I think a lot of times, and I used to do this a lot, like I would look at my kids and I just want, and this is when I was in the stage of, am I going to mess up my kids? Am I messing up my kids? Oh my gosh, I'm messing up my kids. And when I would see myself in them, like I wasn't seeing Esme, Gavin, and Ava. I was seeing Dawn, and trying to prevent these things or experiences from happening. And then a friend of mine pointed out to me, she's like, you know, they have their own paths, and they're going to have, even if they do experience exactly what you experienced, they may not receive it the same way. They may not take it the same way. It may not impact them the same way. But I think it's so important for us to be able to have those honest conversations with them. And my daughter, I don't know about your kids, but you know, my daughter, my oldest is 9. My son doesn't care too much about my stories yet. And then my 4-year-old just isn't there yet. But my oldest loves to just sit and chat with me and find out, well, what happened when you were younger, and you know, what embarrassed you and what didn't. And I feel like in talking to her about all of those things, I am shifting cycles, and I am breaking patterns, and I am helping her see things in a way that I I didn't get to see things growing up, because back then, I mean, let's face it. I mean, back then it wasn't acceptable, I guess, or socially acceptable to really talk to your kids about feelings and to talk about your period, or to talk about sex, or talk about homosexuality, or, you know, losing your virginity, or what sex is, or any of that stuff. And I feel like when we can be more open with our kids at age appropriate levels, you know, clearly, that just helps them
navigate.
It does. Yes. And it helps them make sense of the world in a different way, instead of just feeling like they're just being thrown out there on their own. Yeah. And I think that's such a beautiful gift we can give them, because then again, they are able to go into the world more confidently, with more knowledge, more understanding, more tools, which is going again to help break those generational cycles that have been passed down from generation to generation, which is, you know, all the things I mentioned.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And that's exactly my thought on the whole thing. If I can share my experiences and just have an open conversation, and, you know, like you said, they're all going to have their own path, but maybe the path, you know, it's not exactly the same, and it veers a little bit, and they're not, they don't experience the things that we wish we had it, you know, or it's not to the degree that we experienced it. So for sure, I think having that open conversation is amazing. And for me, raising my 3 daughters by myself without their dad around, for me, I feel like being able to discuss that with them openly and talk about my relationship with my dad, because he wasn't around much, and what that looks like now, and just kind of compare that, just to have the same thing, have an open conversation. And so maybe their path is a little bit different than what mine was, and just, yeah.
I mean, and I feel like when we heal those patterns and we heal those things, like you were saying, you know, your dad wasn't around, their dad's not around, which can lead to, you know, abandonment issues and resentment and those things. And when we heal our own stuff around that, like I have my own history of relationship patterns that I'm healing, you know, or fear of commitment patterns, you know, I should say, that I'm healing and that I have healed. And so when we heal those things, then we are able to talk to our children from a place of empowerment. And even, you know, I know we're talking a lot about daughters today because you have daughters and my oldest is 9, but even with our sons, you know, it's the same. It's very similar. I mean, granted, boys are different than girls. That's truth. And it's still talking to them, communicating with them, healing your own emotional and personal issues, so they don't pass them on, you know. And so he knows how to treat women. And so he's not that guy that's, you know, oh, what's the word? I don't know. I just came up with hit and run. But I know that's how it's called. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just like they come in for a one-shot deal and take off, or they see women as less than, or they believe in the societal norms and values and things that are presented to them. And us showing respect for ourselves and letting them and allowing them and teaching them how to show respect for one another as humans, you know, and loving everybody, like you were saying, and just being kind to everybody, is also going to impact this breaking of these dysfunctional cycles that we, quite frankly, don't want our kids to repeat.
Yeah. No. Yeah. True. So true. Yeah. And I feel like it all just comes down to coming from a place of love. Everybody just coming from a place of love, because that's just, I just see it as a strong foundation. And coming from a place of fear is usually what causes everything else, the other things, you know, the meanness or the taking advantage of, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So what have you found for yourself? What have you found to be the most beneficial in healing, so that you don't pass the same patterns down to your own children? Like, what are some ways that you have personally healed? And I know that healing is a process, and life, you know, it's like you can get to a certain layer and then you go along and then you're like, whoa, this is up again.
Yeah.
I'm done with this, you know?
Like, we're here again?
I mean, but it's just about peeling back the layers, and it's not about getting to this like, I've reached the pinnacle of healing, but I would love to hear some of the things that you've engaged in that maybe other people might not know about. And I mentioned some earlier, and I can go back through again, but I want to hear from you what you have felt has been effective for you.
Movement is huge for me. It was the first thing that that really healed my body. Like I said, with my cesarean sections, with my twin daughters, I was on bed rest for 2 months, and then I had a C-section with them, and then a C-section with my third daughter. And moving my body, re-strengthening my body was just unbelievable. And then fast forward just a couple years ago, I started a yoga practice. And I jumped in. I recently moved. I didn't know much about it. No, I take that back. I'm going to step back a little bit, because there was a period before that where I went through a point where I was just completely blah. I felt really blah and just kind of down and no motivation, nothing.
Emotionally, you felt down?
Emotionally down, physically, just felt really, I don't even know the word. Blah is the only word I can come up with for that. And so I recommitted to my movement practice, because I was teaching Pilates for, every day for several years, but I wasn't moving my own body. And so I recommitted, started moving my body 3 times a week. And that changed me physically, emotionally. I was like, new creative ideas were coming up. I started my online business. I moved out of LA, all these things came up out of that. So then once I moved to LA, I started my yoga practice, and that whole entire first week of yoga, I went every day, a couple times, twice a day, and I cried the entire first week of that week in yoga. And I was like, what the heck? And it was all emotional healing. You move your body in another way, and we hold our negative emotions in our hips. We were doing major hip openers that week. We hold our anxiety in our side body. And so that was a lot of emotional healing, cleansing then. And then I found a group of women. You included my mastermind group. That was a healing process for me, just finding my sisters. Mm-hmm. And then working with with you guys as sisters, but also as entrepreneurial women. And then that's a healing process in business. And it's just surrounding yourself with like-minded people. That's a whole healing process, or has a healing component to it too. And, I found my meditation, being outdoors, sticking my feet in the sand, grounding, all that is part of it. We call those our core routines. And then recently I started I can't even talk anymore, but Flower Essence practitioner course. Mm-hmm. And so along with being in this practitioner course, we're also working one-on-one with our instructor, who's also taking us through another healing process with flower essences, and that's bringing a whole lot of garbage up. So it's really, like you said, it's an ongoing process, and what I thought was never an issue is an issue, and it's incredible.
Well, I mean, I love everything you said, and I relate to all of it and resonate with all of it. And, our bodies store all of these issues. They store emotional issues or any trauma we've had on a cellular level. And that's why the movement piece is so important. And it's about repatterning the brain as well. And when we move our bodies differently, it creates new neural connections within our brain. And it can help repattern things that have been stuck for a while. And also energetically, we hang on to all these things emotionally, and we have to move and at least do some sort of energetic healing and processing for this stuff to move out, because emotions are just energy. They're just energy it's just energy wanting to move through the body. And if people would understand that more, I think that they wouldn't feel so stuck in anger and sadness and fear all of the time when you go to the body. And for me, it was the body-centered psychotherapy training that I went to, and really learning how to get into my body and allow the feelings to be there and allow the feelings to move through the body. Koya has been so amazing for me too, because it's about the spiritual connection. It's about moving your body. It's about healing old stories. It's about connecting with other women. And then, like you said, you know, our mastermind, just meeting these amazing women who are also spiritual and also deep and also self-aware and conscious and super supportive, just women who don't judge each other and criticize each other, just a loving, such a loving circle of women. And I feel like the community piece is so important, especially for us as women. Like, we need each other. Yes, I need time alone. I need time out in nature. I need time to meditate and do all of those things. But I need my ladies, you know, because you get something from other women that you're not going to get if you're heterosexual. You know, and you're in a partnership that you're not going to get from your partner or your husband. And I think more and more women are really understanding that. And that's why there's so many different communities of women being formed. I feel like more now than ever. And I'm actually in the process of creating my own here in Austin, because all of you ladies are all over the place, most in California, I think. You know, and I've joked about moving there. I told my husband, I visit California so much that I think we move. But I think all of it is so impactful and so helpful. And I feel like there's not a one size fits all for everyone, and that each person has to find their own way. But until we become more conscious, we're not going to be able to shift these patterns for our children, and they will inevitably take them on. And to really pay attention to how your children are reflecting you back to you, and choosing whether or not you want that to continue or not. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't think I do. I think that was a lot of great information, I think.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me. And can you tell people where to find you before we go?
Yes. So I am on Facebook, Natalie Garay, the Pilates Mama, or you can find me on my website, nataliegaray.com. And yeah, those are the best two places to find me.
Great. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. And I know that we have helped many moms with some of these situations, and hopefully they will take it upon themselves to start shifting cycles for their own children as well. And you can, if you go to DawnKGibson.com, pick up 10 Ways to Quit Screwing Up Your Kids. It's a conscious mom's guide to raising confident children. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you, Dawn.